AITA for being angry with my husband over the fact he won't consider adoption? My husband and I have struggled with fertility for years. We have been trying for 7 years and nothing ever happened. We finally went to the doctors about this issue and we were told that we wouldn't be able to have a child the old-fashioned ways and our options laid out for us. My husband wants to go the route of IVF or a surrogate while I suggested adoption. I do not want to sink even more time into IVF, which could likely not work, not to get into the hell it would put my body through and the money it would cost to keep trying that way. As for the surrogate idea, I just am not fully comfortable with that. My husband is against adoption as he wants a child that is fully ours, and has brought up that we'd know the medical history this way too and avoid any problems. He also added to his argument that we can afford the IVF or surrogate, so we should. This upset me as any child would be our child regardless of blood. We ended up fighting over this and he told me firmly he will not adopt a child and to drop it. I was so upset with him over this that I ended up sleeping in the guest room. I don't know, it just shocked me. We've been trying so long for a child, shouldn't any child we raise together be enough? I never thought he was someone to get hung up on blood connections. I don't really have a judgment. But do not adopt if your husband feels this way. Do not put a child through that. Nah. Let's be clear. You have absolute control over what happens to your body. If you don't want to go through that, then stick to your guns. He would be the off for pressuring you to undergo IVF treatment if you really don't want to. At the same time, he is not tough for wanting biological children. I know that Reddit tends to disagree with this take, so I'll likely be downvoted. But the issue of having children is extremely personal. If someone wants bio children, or wants to be child-free, or wants to adopt, then that's their personal choice and no one should be trying to convince them otherwise. In fact, what you don't want to do is drag someone to adopt a child when they don't want to. Because the likelihood is high that they won't be a good parent to start with. This is why baby trapping, for example, is a very risky pursuit. More often than not it ends with deadbeat parents and neglected children. I think you both need to maybe talk this out through marriage counseling. Because this sort of issue is a deal breaker for many people. It's best to be completely clear on what your hard boundaries are. And if they are in direct opposition, then it might be best to move on from each other in the most respectful and compassionate way possible. Edit. I got up for a bit to make lunch and this blew up. Thanks for the awards. Nah. He already has considered it and made up his mind. Adoption is not a choice he wants to make. And that's fine. It's not for everyone and he shouldn't cave to pressure when it's something he truly doesn't want. That wouldn't be fair to the child in the long run. Likewise, you are done with IVF and want adoption to be an option. That's fine too. It can be a wonderful option when all the people involved want it. Nah. Adoption is more complicated than just adopting a baby and being done with it. You likely won't be able to get a newborn. They will probably be at least a few years old to about 8. And being put up for adoption comes with its own psychological consequences for the child that you will have to work with. They will likely at some point in the future want contact with bioparents and seek them out. Adopting should be something you want to do to give the best life you can for a child, and not to fulfill your own needs. Adoption is not an alternative to having your own kids. It's completely different and complicated. Nah. I don't think either of you are wrong in having certain desires to build a family in certain ways. Only thing now is to maybe have couples therapy to work through this. Nah. I understand your point, but I also understand his. Adoption is awesome, but it is not for everyone. It honestly sounds like y'all are having trouble communicating about this emotional topic. You may need to take a break from the subject to process each of your thoughts or attend counseling, so you can talk about such an emotional, heated issue in a healthier way. I want to put nah. Probably will be downvoted. He does not have a right to pressure you into IVF. You do not have a right to pressure him into adoption. You both are allowed to be upset. You both need to be respectful of each other's position and feelings. Neither one of you should be shaming the other. I don't know, it just shocked me. We've been trying so long for a child, shouldn't any child we raise together be enough? I never thought he was someone to get hung up on blood connections. If you keep invalidating his feelings, that will make YTA. You keep arguing in the comments as well. Like it's only your opinion and feelings that matter. It's been 7 years. He's thought about this. He told you how he felt. Just because you don't want what he wants doesn't mean you get to deny that you had no clue. In turn, deny his feelings and shame him. That is just wrong. And that is why you're heading into a-hole territory. Please seek out counseling for individual and couples therapy. You too need this. There is a lot to decide and work on. Together, with respect to each other. Nah. A lot of unknowns come with adoption. There is a reason adopted children have a higher risk of future alcohol dependence and mental health struggles. That being said, you're definitely not wrong either. You guys need to take a break from the idea of becoming parents and just reevaluate your lives before readdressing the situation. Nah. Though I'm the same as the other commenter. Could go with Esh. You want adoption. He wants IVF. You are both practically the same in that you won't consider the option the other wants. I totally understand him wanting a biological child, and I totally understand you not wanting to put your body through that. Nah. This is just one of those big decisions where it needs 2 yes votes to move forward, and 1 yes vote can scuttle the issue. Your point of view is completely valid, but so is your husband's. Just because you would see any child you adopted as yours doesn't mean he would, if that is truly the way he feels. I doubt that any amount of persuasion is going to change that. If you dig your heels in and he caves, that doesn't mean he is going to be happy. Maybe, because people can change. But do you want to take the risk that he never warms to your adopted child and stews in silent resentment before your marriage implodes? Likewise, I understand why you wouldn't want to go through the process of IVF. I know several people who have gone through IVF. It rarely takes the first time, requires multiple painful injections. The hormones have insane side effects, and it is prohibitively expensive. It's also an emotional roller coaster. The hope that they give you. Then if it doesn't succeed, it's a grief comparable to a pregnancy loss. IVF is not easy on a marriage or anyone's mental health. Adoption, if you are in the US, can be a tough nut too. Unfortunately, if you are picky about the race and age of the kid, it can also be expensive, time-consuming, and with the popularity of open adoptions, can be an emotional roller coaster as well. You and your husband need to go to marriage counseling. This is a huge deal-breaker level difference in how you see family. Neither one of you is wrong. Neither one of you is a bad person. Both of your viewpoints are equally valid. Unfortunately, they are also equally opposed. This isn't an issue where you can find a compromise. You can't get half a baby. You will need to find a way to see each other's perspectives and come to a consensus you can both live with. Nah. Look, this is hard because personal feelings are actually really valid here, and we all have different takes on adoption. I personally don't agree with the belief that kids need to be biological. But I also have my own biological kids. So I realize that I'm not one to make a judgment about how others feel. Emo. The last thing an orphaned child needs is to be adopted by a person who is on the fence about whether or not adopted kids are really yours. All kids should be fiercely loved and wanted by both parents. I would be concerned here that adopting a kid when you're into it and he isn't is just a divorce waiting to happen. It will come between you at some point. It likely is now. There's sometimes the realization in a relationship that you have to make a choice between carrying on as you are or going forward with being a parent. There is no right way here. Just what you want. If all other options didn't work or became impossible, would you be okay with being childless? Is it being just the two of you enough? At the end of the day, if you want to adopt a child more than anything, then you should be free to make that choice. But the consequence of that is that it may be a choice you make alone. I hope you both work it out. Best to you both. Nah, he has his own reasons and you have your own reasons. If you can't compromise, you shouldn't be together. You can't force him into adoption and vice versa. He can't force you into IVF. Nah, but adoption is probably around the same price as IVF. There's nothing wrong with your husband wanting a biological child. There's also nothing wrong with you wanting to adopt. Adoption comes with its own challenges though. Nah, it's okay to feel angry about this as it affects you, but adoption is a huge responsibility and is not a great fit for every parent. If husband is against it that much right off the bat, it's a big sign that he won't have the right mindset, and that's not his fault. It takes specific parents to be ready to adopt a child. However, this is a huge issue for your relationship. He doesn't want to adopt. You don't want to deal with IVF. But you both want children. You both need to talk about what you want and what you can and cannot handle. Either one of you bends in regards to how you get a child. You both decide that children won't work for your relationship. Or you both start talking about if this relationship is still working. Nah. As someone who struggled with infertility, this is a conversation my husband and I had together when we were going through it. We both agreed that if it didn't work with help from the doctor, that adopting just wasn't for us. Your husband is allowed to not want to go down that route. Just as you are allowed to not want to continue with the doctor, that doesn't make either of you an awe. I understand what you're going through. It's very hard and draining emotionally and physically. I wish you well on your journey and hope that the two of you can come to an understanding or agreement on how to move forward. Nah, neither of you should have to do something you don't want to. This is a difficult discussion and neither of you are the But also, people sometimes change their views when they have time outside of the argument. P.S. Sorry about your difficult decisions. Nah. Or ESH, because you both went and fought over it instead of just talking about it normally. Both are valid options. It's okay to think there's no difference between adoption and having a biological child. But it's also okay to feel that there is a difference. And to not be okay with either one of those options. There is no right or wrong here. There can be serious downsides to adoption. Adopted children are not tabula rasa, and human trafficking is a very serious risk, especially with international adoption. Depending on your country, it can be very hard or nearly impossible to adopt within your own country. Plus, adoption can also be very expensive. Similarly, fertility treatment is emotionally challenging for both partners and physically challenging for the woman. And there's no guarantees here either. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with infertility, there are no easy choices. You two need to talk about all the pros and cons of all options a lot more, so that you each understand each other's motivation and feelings. Maybe there's a compromise. Maybe you'll end up saying, we're to try one round of IVF, and if unsuccessful, we move to adoption. Maybe you'll eventually decide to be child-free. Because you can't compromise. This may be a breaking point in your relationship. but it definitely doesn't have to be. However, you both need to do proper research into what each option actually entails, and to have very clear communication without blaming each other for the feelings you have about the different options. Good luck. It sucks. YWBTA if you adopted a child into a home where one parent doesn't want to adopt. Adoptee trauma is serious. There are some wonderful adoptees and first moms I follow on TikTok that are backed by some intensive research and years of personal experience. Adoption is often treated as a replacement for infertility instead of what it ought to be, giving a child who is actually in need a better life. Soapbox aside, you're both NaH at the moment. He is completely within his rights to prefer a biological child, and you're within your rights to want to adopt. However, this is one of those situations where you don't compromise. One no means no. Just like you don't want to go down the IVF and surrogate route, he doesn't want to do adoption. Surrogate is a good option if you don't want IVF and the problem it can cause your body. He is entitled to his feelings and opinions on this as it'd be his child too. I don't think you are the but neither is he really. I am surprised you've tried for 7 years together and never had these discussions before. You need to either compromise like a couple should do when butting heads, or maybe consider going your separate ways and get what you both want without the other person giving the other any rope. Compromise should be the first resort, TBH. Nah, both the sides are right. IVF is painful both mentally and physically, and during adoption not knowing the kid's bio-family's medical history can cause problem. I am adopted, and since my parents didn't know my bio-family's medical history, and just now I am learning that one of my bio-parents has weak bones.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.